So by this point, I've worked with over 80 marketing agencies. And what I'm going to do in this video is break down the exact data of why some people are absolutely crushing 10K and scaling beyond that. A lot of my clients have gone on hit 20, 25 plus thousand a month. But then some of them, they even struggle to get to the 10K. And I want to break down exactly why that is so you can draw the gap and you can see the same exact parallels between the two, because they're on a very similar journey. But the different types of people take different decisions and they operate things differently, which is what leads to growth in some and stalls in the other. Stalls being like they're stalled, they're held back, and really they just plateau at anywhere around the 10K mark, below typically, sometimes at the 10K. So typically what we see, and I've been in the agency space since 2017, okay? It's almost 10 years. And over the past decade, what I've seen is this obsession with the 10K a month target. And I do get it. I totally understand. You know, having worked my way up from working retail, hitting 10K, going beyond that, hitting 20K, etc., I've been able to see the difference. And I've been able to see what it was like within myself. And now, again, working with so many agencies, I've seen the differences within those people themselves. So I understand why this 10K thing is such a big deal. But what we have to understand is if we just come back down to the basics quickly, what we're running is a service-based company, okay? And to understand about getting past 10K a month, unless you have a 10K offer and you're able to sell it, that's typically the easiest way, of course, to get to 10K. But understandably, most people don't have a 10K offer, especially when they're starting out. And so what that introduces is a series of complexities in the infrastructure that they have within their agency that holds them back from being able to reach the 10K in the first place and then ultimately scale beyond that. So what we've got to do, and what we're going to do in this video to get a little bit more into it, is we're going to look at the infrastructure side, but we're also going to look at the mindset side. And I don't want you to roll your eyes when you hear that. You have to understand that if you are not at the moment making 10K or over, there's something holding you back. And I'm going to walk you through all of those bottlenecks that could potentially be causing your plateaued growth at the moment. So let's go ahead, let's get into it. The very first thing that I want to talk about is an issue that plagues a lot of small business owners. And you may have noticed this in your own clients. You may have noticed this in prospects that you've had sales calls. You may notice it in yourself or friends and the people that you work with. But essentially, it's the do-it-all mentality. It's the idea that some of us want to do everything. We feel like we have to. We feel like from an ego perspective, if we really want to succeed, then we need to go through all of the trouble. We feel like we need to go through a really difficult time to prove to ourselves and other people that we deserve this life. And this might relate to you, it might not. And you got to hold on to it for a second and just realize that if this hasn't stepped in already, it may step in the future, okay? But there's two sides of the coin. Some of us believe we absolutely have to do certain things ourselves. That's trap number one. And usually that comes from ego, where again, you just want to prove to yourself and others that you can do it. But sometimes it comes from this other position where you don't want to let go of the control. You feel like if you want everything to work and you think you want everything to go well and you want to succeed, then you feel like you need to take the control on you. And by the way, this is a very respective trait. And the reason I say that is because entrepreneurship, ultimately, it's all about leadership. It's about leading other people and creating different possibilities for the world. So with that in mind, obviously it's beyond more than just making money, right? It's like going a level deeper here. It's leadership. And with that in mind, oftentimes what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have more control. But with having more control and more manual input, and we have to actually do things ourselves, we're going to massively hold back the growth of the company. You have to realize that you are not your company, okay? It's a reality that you have to come to sooner rather than later. You yourself are not your company. Your company is separate. You are simply the one that drives the growth of the company. And this matters even if you're sitting there by yourself right now and saying, Reece, what company? It's just I'm a one-man team, like I'm by myself. And if that's the case, you've got to realize that this vision that you've got for your company is still bigger than you. If you just want to make 5K, then this video is obviously not for you. You're probably not watching it, which means if you are watching this, you want to absolutely crush it. You want to hit 10K, 15K, 20K. You want to scale as far as possible, or at least to a certain point that you'd be happy with. So you have to realize that in order to do that, you need to see yourself separate from the company. And your position as the CEO or the leader of the company, your position is making sure that the company succeeds by any means necessary. And I have to break it to you, typically that doesn't mean that you should be doing everything yourself. There are people out there that are better at you than certain things. And even if you're the best, there are times where you should go ahead and get somebody who's just a little bit behind you, somebody that's not quite as good as you, but you know, they have potential, and you can go ahead and get them to do that particular field. So whether this is sales, fulfillment, project management, taking care of your finances, whatever it is, you got to realize that you shouldn't be doing everything, and you need to start delegating earlier, sooner rather than later. That's very important, right? Because you are going to hit a personal capacity, and there's no amount of client acquisition strategies or marketing or sales tactics that I can give you that's going to allow you to bypass that, because you're going to be juggling all of these different areas of your business. And ultimately what that means is none of those areas are going to hit 100% because your focus is split between those. And that's really going to hold you back. Okay, so the very first thing here is, instead of just like for a second, instead of just thinking, how do I get more clients so I can hit 10K? Just start asking yourself, how can I remove myself from the different areas of the business? And of course, you have to understand that there are some things that you should remove yourself from first and other things that you should remove yourself from later. So typically what I've seen to work, especially with the clients that I work with and the approach that I took, is the very first thing that I delegated and outsourced is to do with service delivery. Because a lot of the time, again, we're running a service-based company, so we're providing a service for other companies. And typically what that results in is you actually spending all your time working on providing that service, i.e. you're focusing on scaling other companies, your clients, as opposed to taking that time of focusing on scaling your own company. So typically what I've seen, and I would say the most logical step, is for you to start offloading your service delivery as soon as possible. Still stay in the role of client communications and still be in touch with your team, of course, and your clients, so they can see that you're still in the picture, you're still active, you still care about them and everything else, mostly for the relationship side of things, but also from service delivery, just so you can keep a tap and you can see that everything's working well. But typically that is the first thing that we're going to start outsourcing, service delivery. In some cases, you might be able to also outsource your appointment setting, or however you're booking appointments right now, you may be able to outsource that earlier as well. So these are the different things to look into. But then the pillar one, and I've spent a lot of time talking about this, I'm going to move on to the second one, but the main pillar to start with is just this do it all myself position. And it's really, really important that you're going to come out of that. The ultimate position that you want to be in is asking yourself the question, if I disappeared for a week or 2 weeks, if I became sick or if I just needed a break and I wanted to go on holiday, would the company not only be able to survive, but will it thrive without you? That is the ultimate position that you want to be in. Okay. In the beginning, it's just simply, can the business continue without me? But the ultimate position is, if I walked away today, would the business survive and continue to grow? Because that is the ultimate position that we want to be in. And that's the best position to be in. Okay. So that's number one, the do it all yourself trap that a lot of people find themselves in. The second thing that's really going to hold you back is working with the wrong clients, or this could also be a pricing issue. Okay. So it could be a quality issue and it could be a pricing concern. I'm going to give you a little simple case study so this can really draw home. I had a client called Josh. Josh started working with me. He was making 300 per client, 300 pounds. He was charging 300 pounds per month per client, which is really, really low. He came in with me, and the very first deal that he closed after coming in with me was a 3K deal. I can't remember if it was 3K a month or if it was 3K for the 90 days, transparency. But the point is, either way, he went from charging 300 upfront to 3,000 upfront. It's a 10x return right away, okay? Now, if Josh had continued scaling at 300 a month, he would have had to sign like 30 clients or something to get to that 10K a month, which would have been a massive headache for everybody involved. And quite frankly, if people are only able to pay 300 a month, they're probably not a very good client also. On the other side of things, what actually ended up happening is obviously he was able to increase his pricing. And again, whether it's 1,000 or 3,000, whatever it is a month, it makes it significantly less. If you're charging 1,000 a month, you need 10 clients as opposed to the 30. If you're charging 3,000 a month, then you need like 3 or 4 clients, and then you're there. So you've got to understand that a lot of the time it may come down to you just not working with the right clients, and part of that is, again, it comes down to your pricing model. If you're charging too little, then your entire business is based on volume. It's, I need to get loads more clients so I can hit these certain goals. Whereas if you start pricing from a value-driven perspective, i.e. if you're returning to the client, say 30,000 in returns each month, you can charge 3K a month from that. That's okay. All right, because they're still getting a 10x return. If you're only producing, say 20K in returns each month, then you can still charge 2K. Like, my general standard in my mind is a 10x return, but some markets allow for a little bit more and some a little bit less. So keep this in mind. But the question that you want to ask yourself is, how many clients would it take at my current pricing in order to hit the 10K? And then the question to follow that up is, could I actually manage that many in the first place? And what you may realize is, you may find that you just need to increase your pricing. You may realize that you need to work with clients that have more money and you can charge more to them. And you may realize that you're not providing enough value in the first place. You know, if you're just providing some service which ultimately isn't driving any returns, then yeah, it's very difficult to go ahead and ask them to pay you more money, because you need to be able to justify it, right? It's an exchange of value. So when somebody pays you money, you're paying them in value. And if your value is not higher than the value that they're giving to you, i.e. the money, then they won't be able to justify it. So in order for them to give you, say, 3K a month, you need to be able to be bringing them more than the 3K a month. It's standard logics and, I guess, economics. And you can really keep that in mind. It's all about the value that you're providing. If you're able to provide enough value where it makes sense for them to pay you more, and they'll pay you more. It's as simple as that, and they won't have a problem with it. They'll be happy about it. That's number 2, all right? Working with the wrong client / pricing issue. Number 3 is not having systems in the company. So if you feel like each time you get a new client, you're starting from scratch, you know, you're reading through an onboarding form, maybe you got that set up, you borrowed it from a course or something, but everything after that is unique, right? The approach you're taking to creatives, I'm gonna use an ad example because my background is an ads agency. So, you know, you're starting from scratch. You get a new creative every single time. You get a new copy. You're always constantly looking for new audiences, all of these different things, right? If this is the position when you're in, where you're starting from scratch every single time, you're not going to be able to scale as easily. And the thing that a lot of people like to say, and there's this quote, simplicity scales. It's true. Simplicity scales, complexity fails, right? So if you're in a position right now where you've got loads of complexity and there's loads of chaos, you're going to find it difficult to scale. Not just from a strategic standpoint where, you know, you got to go and figure out how to get something going each single time, but also from the mindset standpoint where you're going to be in so much chaos because you're doing different things with different clients. And it's not scalable, okay? Like, just simply put, it's not scalable. There's too much chaos from the implementation standpoint, where each different client requires a slightly different approach, but then also from the mindset perspective, where it's like you're juggling so many different things at the same time. Whereas if you have one simple process where every client that comes in, they get onboarded, then step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, all like that, and you've got the system in place and you know exactly what you're doing and it's repeatable and you can just replicate it for every single client that you work with, you're going to do very well. That's a much better, simple system where each client coming in doesn't add any additional chaos, right? The system should be the same. And what should happen is, the more clients that you get, the system scales. So the more clients you get, simplicity doesn't start being introduced, right? It's simple. You get more clients, delivery is simple. The only thing that you have to start doing is maybe hiring more people to continue helping you with the service delivery, which is why I mentioned the do it all yourself thing first, because it's such a massive central pillar to all of the things that I'm talking about here, right? Again, to conclude this point, you've got to realize that the idea here is simplicity, and you can have that simple curve when everything is systemized and simplified within the service delivery element of the company, but also other things yourself, right? How you book appointments, how you sell on appointments to prospects, how you follow up with them, the service delivery, everything needs to be systemized as good as possible. Coming back to that point before where I said, you know, you should be able to leave the company for a week or two and the business is still thriving and it's still growing. That's the position that we want to be in. And you've got to have these systems in place where you can just reuse things and everything is the same. And transparently, it gets a little bit boring. I'm going to be honest with you. It does get a little bit boring when everything is systemized. But what that just ultimately results in is less to, I'm not going to say no stress, but very, very little stress, because everything is systemized. Everything has a process, and you just got to, you've got to take it. And the question that you've got to ask yourself here is, for every client that comes in, do I have a predictable process that will not only get them results, but it will also get them to provide a testimonial, because that's how happy they are with us. If you can get to that point, then you know you're in a very, very good position. I'm going to quickly stop here because I'm going to keep going, but I want to let you know that I'm going to post a little resource in the description below, which is going to be a diagnostic checklist for you to follow through everything that I'm talking about today. Because I know there's a lot of notes that you're probably taking down, but you can grab that document, just go down to the link below and get access to that. And it's going to show you everything that I'm talking about right now, and also a diagnostic question. So you can just ask yourself the question, you can see if that's the particular bottleneck that you have, or maybe you have a different bottleneck, but it'll help you identify exactly what your bottleneck is so you can start growing better within the agency. So just go to the description below and you can get access to that. But the next point here is this feast and famine trap that I see loads of people running into, where they have a decent understanding about appointment setting, they have a decent understanding about sales, but they don't have, again, coming back to the systematic perspective, they don't have a system, or they don't have a predictable approach in place to make sure that that system is always running. A common flaw that I fell into in my early journey, and I see a lot in other people as well, is they'll go ahead and they will do loads of outreach, and then they will sign a client, and then they will have to fulfill the client. So then they will stop their outreach, and then their client is doing well, and then they will decide, okay, I want another client now, or they lose the client, even worse, and now they need to go and get a replacement. So then they started all over again. They back to appointment setting, they get a deal, they close the deal, service delivery, and the cycle repeats. And what we want to do is remove ourselves as much as possible, at least from the appointment setting element of the company. I don't like the idea of outsourcing this. I know a lot of people watching my content, they're in a position where they might want to offload their appointment setting to somebody else. I don't like this because it's not scalable. And it means that your growth is entirely in control of somebody else. And I don't like that. What I prefer to do is build the systems out ourselves within our own agencies. So that way we can literally just turn on and turn off the tap if we want more clients. And ultimately, the goal here is that you don't turn it off. You just keep getting more clients and you have consistency, as opposed to this, oh yeah, I'm going to work now, get loads of clients, and then drop and then get more. And this thing that just continues like this. It's not good. But the reason it happens is because you don't have a predictable client acquisition system in place. If you did have one, then you're not going to have the feast and famine spikes. You're going to just have consistent growth, and your curve is going to look a little bit like this. You're going to have your days or your months or your weeks where you sign more clients, and some months it might be a little bit quieter. But typically when you zoom out over a 5-year perspective, you're going to see a very consistent growth curve, okay? Because you have the consistency and you have the systems that drive these sales opportunities and these clients to the company. So if you're in a position right now where you're doing all of the outreach yourself, you got to realize that the growth of your company is all dependent on this habit that you have formed, this habit of you doing outreach. And again, we want to remove ourselves from that. We want to make it so that that system runs as effectively as possible without our presence. Whether this means that you're going to automate it, or if you're already in a position where you're booking a lot of meetings and you realize that you just don't have the time to continue booking more, then all you got to do is duplicate yourself. You delegate it, you bring somebody in to help you set the appointments, you show them the exact system that you've created, and you have them run it. And then eventually you may have a team or whatever else. But to keep this simple for now, the overall point here is that to have the consistency with outreach, it cannot be dependent on yourself. If it's dependent on yourself and you've got so many other things to focus on, both within the business and without, including, again, as I said before, sickness, holidays, things like that, you're not going to be able to manage everything. You got to let some of it go. And you got to have that system in place. And the very, very last thing that I want to touch on here is more of an identity thing. And what I'll open that up with saying is that everything that we do as humans, the core thing that drives human behavior is identity. If we can relate to something, we'll do it. if we're doing something and it creates what's called cognitive dissonance, where we don't see why we should be doing the thing in the first place, right? For example, if you really don't believe in sales, which is probably not you, but if you really don't believe in sales and you're running an agency that requires you to sell, there's cognitive dissonance there. You're going to feel very uncomfortable. What we've got to do is ensure that the identity we have is aligned with the identity that we're looking to achieve. So that means that we just want to basically jump forward 6 months, 12 months, whatever timeline that you can go to. And you don't want to go too far ahead, but you want to look at your basic next step. What is my next step? In this case, it might be 10K a month. It might be 15K a month, maybe further. The point is, we need to look at that version of ourselves. They're already there. They're producing, again, say 10K a month. What habits does this person have? What are they doing on a daily basis? What does their schedule look like? What do their emotions feel like? How do they feel when they wake up in the morning? Are they really sluggish and like, ugh, I don't want to work today? Or are they energetic? Are they up immediately at their desk, excited to work on the day? Do they feel more relaxed or do they feel more stressed? Are they working on manually sending emails, or are they just checking in on their campaigns because they've got a software that's running it for them? Like, you've got to be very, very crystal clear on exactly what this person looks like. And then the trick is, it's a really simple trick. You just need to start doing the things that they would do today. You just need to do all of the actions that that person would do today. And as long as you focus on that, you will become the person, because you're taking the exact actions that they are taking. So really just get a piece of paper and start writing these things down and get into it as much detail as possible. Again, habits, beliefs, what are the stories they're telling themselves? What are they doing with their time? Get very clear on this. And start looking at what are the things that you could be doing today. If it says, it's driving a brand new Mercedes, I mean, sure, you can't do that aspect today, but you can do the other aspects that are associated in. They feel abundant. So practice the feeling of abundance. Look in your life and see, what right now do I feel abundance with? And tap into that feeling of abundance, right? You've got to start tapping into the emotions, the feelings that this person is experiencing, and also living out the actions, the habits that they've got, and doing all of the practical stuff themselves, okay? I actually made a video similar to this recently about the push and pull. And essentially what I covered in that video is the core intrinsic motivation comes from having a goal that's pulling you towards it, as opposed to you just pushing yourself. What we want is something that energizes us every single day. And in order to achieve that, we need a vision that really pulls us there. We need to have something that's deep down within us, a really solid core reason why we want to achieve the goal that we've got. If you just want to hit 10K a month just because somebody told you to, the truth is it's probably not going to work with you. Okay, I was speaking to somebody the other day and he told me, Reece, I only want to hit 50K a month. I don't want to go past that. That's just the mark that I want to be at. I was like, dude, I love that. And I mean it. Like, I genuinely love that. Like, you know exactly what you want to get, and you're not being swayed by somebody that's telling you that you need to keep pushing, get to 100, 200, 500K a month, right? Find your number. It's probably not precisely 10K, because it just doesn't make sense. Find out exactly what are the things that you want from your life. Maybe you want a nice apartment. Maybe you do want that brand new Mercedes. Maybe you want to eat healthier. Maybe you want to go to a better gym. Maybe you want to go on more frequent holidays. Figure out exactly what you want and write the stuff down, and figure out the exact, to the penny, how much is this going to cost you to live this lifestyle. Write that down, and that becomes your target. Once you have that target, reverse engineer, use all of the different things that I've spoken about today, and reverse engineer exactly what you need in order to hit that target. How much outreach do you need to be doing? How many sales calls do you need to book? How many sales calls do you need to actually show up? Because, your show up rate's going to be not 100%. How many of those need to close? At what price point do they need to close at? What does your retention rate target need to be? Have a look at these different things. Reverse engineer it. Get in as much detail as possible. And make it a real reality, as opposed to just some dream that you've got. If you found this video valuable, again, get access to that document. It's down in the description. It will help you go through the diagnosing practice, so you can actually figure out what your precise bottleneck is, and you can start implementing these fixes today. If you're a marketing agency owner, you're looking for a more predictable and consistent flow of meetings for your agency, and you would like to explore the idea of working with me one-on-one, there's also a link for that in the description below. Click that. It's a video. It tells you more about me and how good my offer is and all of the good marketing stuff. So if you want to see it, see it. If not, it's totally fine. Just click the subscribe button instead. I upload these once a week to help you grow your agency for free. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one.